So Simon, congratulations on your knighthood.
Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much indeed. It was very exciting and a considerable surprise, but it's great.
We're very pleased to have you here today to talk about this Marconi factory at Hall Street, but we've got some questions. How important is Chelmsford's industrial heritage to its future prosperity?
Well, I think it's like all communities. If you have something special that is associated with a local town or a local city, then I think it should be preserved where it's viable. And of course, we have had this association with Marconi for over a century. It's very important to the city. It's provided the different companies in the past, provided tremendous employment. Marconi achieved a remarkable amount, and it's rather good that he was associated with Chelmsford. So where it is possible, I think it is important that we should be able to preserve the heritage, not as a building that just stands there and people walk past, but actually as a vibrant building that can offer things to the community for the future, learning from the experience of the past.
Should the local civic authorities take a lead in preserving and developing heritage assets for the benefit of future generations?
Well,
or should it only be the pursuit of enthusiastic volunteers? I was going to make the point that particularly in Chelmsford, in its bid for to achieve city status, it actually did cite as credential number one its Marconi heritage.
I mean, I think there is a role for everyone. I certainly think the local authority, where it is relevant and viable, should be providing initiative and stimulus to help local groups of people who have identified buildings that are important to our historical past to preserve them. And I would hope that Chelmsford City Council, who are obviously aware of the efforts going on, would be able to get involved in some way.
So do you support the aims of this Marconi Science Works project, which is basically to acquire part of what is actually the world's first wireless factory, opened by Marconi here in 1899, and for it to be used to inspire future generations of science and technology entrepreneurs? Remember, Marconi was only 24 when he opened this factory, having experimented with wireless from an early age, and he changed the world.
No, absolutely. And yes, the short answer is, of course, if it is viable and possible to raise the necessary money to be able to obtain the building and then to turn it into a centre to encourage the engineers and scientists of the future, and who knows what they may come up with. Marconi shows what he came up with. There may be another Marconi in Chelmsford as we talk,
yes,
waiting for the opportunity, and that's why it's important to try and achieve this so that people do have an opportunity.
Is there a major shortage of technology skills in the UK? The Marconi Science Works project aims to provide not only the historical setting for raising awareness of Marconi and the Marconi company's great contribution to Chelmsford and the world, but to also provide workshops for school-aged children to experience hands-on technology through the provision of STEM clubs.
Yeah. I mean, certainly in the past there has been a shortage in that too many pupils were more interested in going for a more classic education in the arts, and they were shunning engineering, the sciences. That has changed in the last 2 decades or so. I think we still need more scientists, and given the importance that they have to the economy, to the thriving industry, that we've got to make sure that they continue to grow, so that we don't have a surplus in the arts and a surfeit in engineering and science.
Mm-hmm. Is it of concern that the skills, this sort of shortage though, is further exacerbated by the fact that women have generally not been encouraged to pursue careers in science and engineering, which must deprive the country of a significant resource?
Yeah, I think there was traditionally a problem because the far too young girls were attracted or given the opportunity to go into science and engineering. I think that has changed in recent years, but there is still a way to go. And what one's got to to explain to young people who have the whole future ahead of them is that it is a vital, important area of education because of how it can contribute both to them and their job satisfaction, but also to the country as a whole. And to make it more attractive and, for want of a better word, sexy, to go into science, to develop your skills as a scientist, as an engineer. I mean, the Baroness Platt of Brittle was a scientist all her life. She was a great proponent of moving forward more people, particularly girls, but also boys, to take up sciences at school and then develop it in higher education and through careers. And it always amused me that because of her science background, wherever she went, she always carried a spanner in her handbag because she thought it was one of the most important and useful utensils to have in case of an emergency.
And that would be for the application of science, which is quite important.
Exactly, exactly.
So I was going to say though, without the enthusiasm of science teachers who organise STEM clubs in schools, how can the government support all schools to provide facilities where at the moment they are lacking? I mean, there are still many schools in this area which do not provide STEM clubs, which is obviously a void that we're seeking to fill with the Marconi Science Works project.
I mean, what government has done, and I'm not talking just about a Conservative government or a coalition government, but you know, the last Labour government under Brown and Blair, they did a tremendous amount to encourage more pupils to take up science at the school and not simply go for the classic arts education. We've seen an expansion of apprenticeships across the board, which also helps. But it is up to the schools to identify the needs of their pupils and to meet those, and to see from the experience of other schools that do have STEM clubs the benefits it brings to pupils there, so that they can then replicate it in their own schools. But ultimately it's for the schools to do it, but they can learn so much from the experience of other schools that are one step ahead of them.
And of course you're going to see in a short time some of the results of that with the schools competition at Anglo-Italian University.
Yeah.
The skills manager of STEM at Essex County Council has said that they're currently working with partners to identify delivery points for young engineers clubs. And Marconi Science Works, she says, would dovetail with that ambition of theirs. So, I mean, it is the Marconi Science Works project's intention to provide particular focus on inspiring young women into engineering and technology, and to give opportunities to children which are not available at their particular schools. Do you think that industry and commerce should take a greater interest in supporting projects such as Marconi Science Works? And indeed, do you have any way of encouraging such participation?
Yes, I think they've got a crucial role, and we have seen across the country greater interaction between local companies and local schools, and also where there are universities, local universities as well, because they are the employers of the next generation. And if there is a shortage, I mean, for example, with the question of nurses, Anglo-Ruskin University has an excellent medical school which trains nurses for the NHS because there is a need. The same thing can be done with schools. I mean, I was a governor of a secondary school in Chelmsford for about 15 years, and what was interesting there was the Marconi Communications, which sadly is no longer in the city, but they work very closely with sixth forms, going into...
Sorry,
Marconi's turned his back on us.
He's obviously not impressed.
Should industry and commerce take a greater interest in supporting projects such as Marconi Science Works? And do you have any way of encouraging such participation?
I think it's crucial that schools and local businesses work together, because they can help, given that employers and companies in a locality always need the next generation of employees. If they can get it through to schools what their needs are, the standards they require, it will help to get some young people to actually do the training at school that's relevant to a local employer. And I mean, certainly for many years, the Marconi companies, when they were in Chelmsford, they would work with sixth forms in the town, as it was then, to encourage people to do science rather than arts, because they saw them as potential employees who could benefit the company, benefit themselves, and benefit the country.
Yes.
And so there is a vital role to play, so that the education system isn't skewered in one way and is then ignoring the needs of local workforces.
And indeed, I remember myself going as a school child in Chelmsford, spending a week in Crompton Parkinson's, getting work experience there during a school Christmas holiday. Anyway,
See, that is the way forward.
Absolutely,
and also, it gives young people a greater understanding of the workplace and that area of a workforce, to see if it's for them. Apprenticeships as well help. I mean, I was recently at E2V, and I met with their current cohort of apprentices, and it was very encouraging talking to them, in that their enthusiasm for what they were doing and what they were learning there. And the fact was that it had started at school by the company going into the schools to sell themselves as to what a career working in a company that is very much to do with electronics and science can offer someone. And I particularly remember one apprentice saying it was as a result of that visit that he suddenly thought, maybe this is for me rather than a more traditional education, and he made the change for the A-levels in particular that he was going for, got selected onto the E2V project, and is absolutely loving it and doing very well.
Very good. So, last question. Marconi turned a landscape of farmers into an industrial engine house at the end of the 19th century. Could Chelmsford become a 21st century technology hub, building on his legacy?
There is no reason whatsoever why it shouldn't happen. With determination, hard work, innovation, and an element of luck, there is nothing to stop Chelmsford from building on the success of its past to meet the challenges of the future.
Sir Simon, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.
So last night, a 17-year-old lad who's built his own laptop computer from components, not going and buying the bits that you assemble.
I thought that was amazing.
I think, there's another Marconi.
But I mean, if you look at some of the projects that are done at the exhibition, I mean, that was amazing.
Oh, we noticed.